Today we will be talking about John Cassavetes' 1974 film, A Woman Under the Influence. The reason I'm choosing to talk about this film today is because I wanted to recommend it to as many people as possible because it's an extremely powerful film. I watched it around a month and a half ago. It was the first John Cassavetes film that I'd seen, and John Cassavetes was essentially this extremely influential filmmaker from the 70s, widely renowned for his ahead of his time and unorthodox approach to filmmaking. He seemed to have a drive for capturing sheer realness in film, often shooting things in an unceremonious documentary style and having performance-led storylines. He was a former theatre actor with an intimate knowledge of the acting craft, so when he was directing films, he'd often grant his actors a lot of creative freedom to improvise. And this all results in his films being utterly naturalistic and authentic in what they are depicting. Now, this all might sound fairly familiar by today's standards of experimental filmmaking, but what you do have to appreciate is this was the 60s/70s. For the time, these were very innovative things to do. He started his feature film career in the very late 50s and continued to make films through the 60s and 70s. The 60s and 70s were a very significant period in cinema history because you had all of these emerging, innovative filmmaking styles that were completely reshaping the cinema landscape. It was a revolution in filmmaking, and Cassavetes was one of the first filmmakers through the breach, so to speak. It was a time where the French New Wave was planting its roots in American cinema as well, and John Cassavetes was essentially at the centre of all of this.
He stages the day, he does the work.
Don't exaggerate, I do the best I can.
So when it comes to A Woman Under the Influence, that also possesses that aforementioned harsh realism that John Cassavetes is known for, that authentic acting style, that unapologetic depiction of life. The film is almost entirely character driven. The plot, if you could call it a plot, is excruciatingly simple. Is that simplicity a bad thing? Absolutely not. This is just how the film needs to be. This is just how it chooses to manifest. It follows the life of a mentally disturbed mother as she navigates day-to-day events, and simply by you observing her doing more or less anything, you get so much information about her character.
Come on, come on, come on. That's it. Come on.
The film is simply about witnessing her as well as her husband and children as they go through this experience and as they slowly have to come to terms with the fact that she may be quite severely unwell. And the focal point of the film is the performances that accompany this simple narrative. The story and overall essence of the film comes out through the performances. Again, simple plot, but that is just the framework so the actors can chew the scenery. Just the presentation and the performances supply all of the emotional profundity. It's not one of these intricate Hitchcockian scripts where you have 1,000 spinning plates and all of these different narrative threads. It's just, here you go, have this big fat dose of life, this grueling, bleak, sometimes bittersweet dose of life. If you've watched certain other videos of mine, you may have noticed that I have a little bit of a fetish for film realism. I do adore it when a film can capture something about reality so authentically in an almost effortless way, where it's so one-to-one to real experiences you may have had. I think that is a magical skill. You could maybe say that that's my favourite style of filmmaking, I'm not sure, but I'm guessing you're all pretty sick of me going on about it. This is so authentic and genuine, genuine. So bearing that in mind, everything I've said about this film already does point to me loving it, and yeah, I do. I really like this film.
You've been acting a little strange. I wonder if you've been aware of that or not.
This is why I felt compelled to share it with you guys in case you hadn't seen it, because I think a lot of you will love it as well. This film is a perfect representation of the effectiveness of the filmmaking medium because, again, on paper, it's quite a simple and ordinary storyline. It's the director's presentation that brings out the magic from the scenes. It is literally all about how it's presented to us. It's the medium is the message bullshit. We've seen a million scenes where a husband and wife are having an argument to the point where you'd think that concept concept would be eternally generic. Yet the argument scenes in this film are entirely their own.
It's gonna work because I'm already pregnant.
Don't let that mind run away on you now.
Do you remember how you laughed?
Don't, Major.
See that, Nick? That's how close we are. And they can't pull us apart, they can't force us apart.
How it carves out a timeless identity for itself via inventive filmmaking alone is awesome. As far as the acting is concerned, it's the kind of acting that almost transcends to another level, as in the performers do such a deviously good job at making the characters their own that they almost take over the entire film. They so strongly manifest these fictitious characters into being somehow. So these performances become the lifeblood of the movie, the thematic identity. And it's a good thing too, because the film is almost entirely reliant on the performances. There's like next to nothing without them.
I didn't see you there.
Oh, Nick, I'm dying to see Mabel.
You'll see it, don't worry, you'll see it.
I can't wait to see her.
All right.
Barring the very intentional documentary sensibilities, Cassavetes is just pointing the camera in the direction of these actors who are carrying almost all of the film's weight and profundity. Of course, he has to be commended for getting these performances out of these actors, like he hasn't done nothing. I just wanted to emphasise how integral the acting was for this film to even work.
I didn't even know what a big hand you had.
I play ball.
Now, look at these lines. Look at, I had no idea he had all these lines.
Gena Rowlands, who plays the main woman, Mabel, gives one of the best female performances I've ever seen. And I also think that this is one of the most sincere depictions of mental illness in film.
I belong to you. That's it. Those are my 5 points. That's what I need. I have 5 points.
It's fucking insane how good she is in this film. The camera is on her for such a large amount of time, and she is always constantly living in the skin of that character. Not only does she have a lot of screen time, but the scenes themselves often come in these extensive forms that just go on and on. All the while she's acting the shit out of it. There are no cracks in the performance. It honestly reads like a stage play, which makes sense as this was originally intended to be a play. Gena Rowlands, who was actually John Cassavetes' wife, expressed interest in being in a play, so John wrote this script with her in mind for the lead role. And apparently when he'd finished the script, he decided that the role was too emotionally demanding to expect Gena Rowlands to be able to do it 8 times a week. So they made it into a film instead, so she'd only have to do it once. She had to go to such intense, dark places in her mind that to make her do that like numerous times a week would have been cruel.
Take a lady, please. And you! You're gonna let him take me.
And this performance is intense, the character is intense. It's just her playing this severely mentally ill woman who keeps going unhinged. There's a lot of anguish there, but there's also a fair amount of zaniness too, as she does act rather odd throughout the film. There are a lot of different faces that she has to wear for this role because the character's mood is so tumultuous and she's constantly fluctuating. When you watch her throughout the movie, even in the times when she's not talking or off in the background, she's always scrutinizingly in character. Every minute expression, every gesture, it's perfect.
For, everybody, this is Mabel for everybody. Hi, Mabel. Hi.
This is obviously a character that's raw with emotion and sorrow, and it is very unlikely that you won't have a profound reaction when watching her. I can't stress this enough, she is oozing with humanity. She is the centerpiece of the film and she's beyond three-dimensional. It's an exhausting level of emotion almost, because again you have those extended shots that just go on and it's just her going off on one. The domestic altercations just play out in the exact one-to-one unflinching fashions as they would in real life. It's that documentary style again, that film realism that's kicking in to just not cut anything out. Nothing's adulterated, nothing's skimmed over, it's just raw emotion.
Jesus Christ! Jesus Christ!
Peter Falk, who plays the husband Nick, he also deserves a lot of praise because, again, he's just zoned in to his character. His performance is mostly just reacting to the things that Gena Rowlands' character does, and he pulls it off exceptionally. He does a great job at conveying all of his thoughts, opinions, and emotions through just expressions. His story is just him trying to haphazardly deal with his mentally unhealthy wife, and it's heartbreaking.
Take deep breaths. I love you. You made me happy. Take a deep breath. Take deep breaths.
It's a great showcase of this unscrupulous struggle because he's not perfect at it. He doesn't really know what he's doing. A lot of the time he reacts in violence and anger, but the film never really condemns him for this. He often loses his temper and he's flawed, but that only adds to his humanity as well as the realism of the film. It's just a genuine, messy depiction of a domestic conflict.
Ma! Ma! No! Just stay there or I'll kill you! Don't need your help!
You sometimes feel like he's being cruel and impatient, but there's other times where you get the sense that he really does care for this woman. It's just about faltering and struggling through these situations, and it's really sad and depressing. But you should watch it. There are some key scenes of Mabel being a mother to her children that are harrowingly bittersweet. You see this woman who has genuine love for her children, and the children have genuine love for her, and it's almost something wholesome, but she is just not mentally fit to raise them.
When you see me, do you feel, oh, I know her, that's Mom? Or do you ever think of me as dopey or mean or
It's just such a fucking sensational performance.
No, you're smart, you're pretty, you're nervous too.
Thank you.
You can sometimes catch the child actors looking at the camera, which honestly never bothered me because my mind can easily slip into the notion that this is indeed a literal documentary. It's so realistic seeming that feeling the presence of the camera isn't immersion breaking. If anything, it feels all the more genuine that the camera is being acknowledged. The camera is a character in its own right, which is also intimately bound to what is unfolding. Through the camera, you feel the watchful eye of the director, the warm, authoritative benevolence of the artist guiding the actors along. That's the case with a lot of films, actually. Again, not much happens plot-wise, but there are a few key sequences that stand out in my mind. One is when Nick brings home all of his construction worker buddies and Mabel makes them all spaghetti. There's like 20 of them and they've all just done a night shift and she cooks for all of them. And you have this fly-on-the-wall experience as you watch them all eat at this table because, again, it feels so real. All of the conversations feel totally organic and spontaneous.
There's one more somewhere. I got John.
That's a good Irish Catholic boy, huh? All up and down the street, all up and down. Little kids, baby carriages, kids crawling. What is that when there's a lot of kids? Is that in the air?
That scene is just a perfect representation of what John Cassavetes is known for.
You can go 8, 9 months, you won't see a kid. A couple of years go by. No, I never see a kid. A couple of years, all of a sudden I see a lot of baby carriages, a lot of babies.
I wouldn't be surprised to learn that some of these people weren't actors and were just being themselves in that scene. It's something about great cinema, like all that's happening is a bunch of people are gathered around talking, eating spaghetti, and it's really captivating to watch.
Where was I?
Take some cheese.
What's your name?
Later we get a scene where Mabel hosts a birthday party and it's just a shit show. There's this other parent there that's just gradually getting more and more weirded out by Mabel.
Come on, hey, come on. Sit there. Hey, that's a nice ring. Come on, a little smile. Come on, let's have some fun. Hey, that's it.
There is a degree of humorousness to be had from the whole situation. She tells them all to dress up in funny outfits and they all end up screaming, running around the house naked.
Maria! Maria, where are you going, Maria?
The other parent's there and he just becomes increasingly more aggravated by what's going on.
Who did all this? Who took all these clothes out? Who did this?
On a side note, I do really love how the bathroom door just has a piece of paper saying private in all caps on it. It's just a really autistic thing to have on your bathroom door. I'm sorry, but it's just, I don't know, it's just something so funny about it. Like, who does that, you know?
Oh, shit. Look at that door, dude. See that door right there? One marked pirate. You think a pirate lives in there?
I see a door marked private.
Is that the door you're talking about?
Even though there is some funniness to this sequence, the underlying tone is of course very tragic and foreboding. This is the key scene that demonstrates that Mabel isn't fit to look after these kids anymore in her current state.
I'm worried about the kids. About leaving them here with you.
Which kids?
About my kids leaving them here.
But I did love this sequence, again for its depiction of this dysfunctional household. It reminded me of other films that depict these unscrupulous, disorderly living circumstances like John Waters' films, or films by Vincent Gallo or Harmony Korine, but they're a bit more severe in those cases. A side of life that's just a bit more chaotic.
Why aren't you having any clothes on, darling? Who took your clothes? This kid is naked.
All right.
There's the authentic film grain, which is of course only initially there because it's a film made in the 70s, it's purely circumstantial. But despite that, it does wonderfully complement this idea that we're getting this unsanitized look at this family. A lot of these films from the 70s that were depicting a filthier, less romantic version of reality really did benefit from the grainy look. Cassavetes was quite a pioneer in early independent, non-Hollywood film production. He was allegedly one of the first directors to properly demonstrate how powerful indie cinema could be to general audiences, how effective they were at telling profound stories. A lot of his films were self-funded, which allowed for him to have 100% creative freedom, so that's why we've got this film that's nothing but a woman spiralling out of control. There is no Hollywood slop in this, no obligatory narrative beats or marketing requirements. It's just a wholly artistic, non-commercial, unflinching work of art.
All right. Just a sip, not like your brother.
Can I have some, Dad?
All right.
And just to tell you how dedicated to his craft Cassavetes was, he allegedly had to mortgage his house to fund this film. That is commitment, if there ever was such a thing.
But, it's unbelievable. If you're going to have spaghetti, I can't stay.
Despite all of these accolades that I'm hurling at the film, I should mention that I did become a little bit restless towards the end, but there are multiple possible reasons for this. Multiple possible reasons why this occurred in my brain. One being that I've got ADHD, so it could have been that. Another being the fact that the film is quite by design agonising and emotionally exhausting to sit through. So perhaps that was what happened to me. I was just worn out by all of this dysfunctional family living. I've had my fill of bleak reality and I'm ready to move on, please. It is such an inherently bleak film with bleak subject matter that I can't really be blamed for getting depressed while watching it.
Don't handle her. She's sick.
Please. All right, that's enough!
That's it! Another possibility, which is a bit more on the critical side, is just that maybe the point had been in fact made to a substantial degree, a sufficient degree, and now it was starting to meander or linger a bit. It is again just a chaotic, almost structureless, documentary-style film. I perhaps already knew the film's final and penultimate tonal destination, and I didn't really need it to elaborate any further. However, the ending itself is intentionally non-satisfactory. It isn't this like amazing resolution. It isn't this big Hollywood inspirational triumph over adversity. Like in the case of reality, things just sort of keep going in this unceremonious manner. Maybe the problem's solved, maybe things are going to get a little bit better, or maybe it's just going to stay the same. We don't know. It's very likely that the trials and tribulations experienced by these characters throughout this film will continue. And that is the nature of life. It's fucking shit. With all that said and done, the main take-home point of this video is that you should watch this film. There is no person who shouldn't see this film. Like, maybe you won't like it or you won't love it, but you should definitely at least see it for yourself. For the avant-garde cinema lovers in my audience, you'll definitely like it, like no question. This film evokes a great degree of emotion out of the viewer. If you are looking for a complex plot with all of these different twists and turns, then this is definitely not for you. Like literally 3 things happen and then she gets sectioned, but I'm okay with that, it works for me. Again, it's slice of life, on the ground realism, it's not one of those goes, okay, we need to figure out the true hidden meaning behind all of this, like all these themes and ideas or what's going on. It's not one of those. It's just presenting something from real life in this matter-of-fact way that is raw and rather disconcerting. Again, in a lot of ways, the best kinds of films are the ones where it's just about basic, ordinary, everyday things, but the filmmakers somehow manage to make it extremely interesting just through the direction, characterization, and presentation alone. It's the best kind of filmmaking, it's the best kind of acting. Again, Gena Rowlands gives one of the best performances of all time. Cassavetes is definitely someone that I'm going to be looking into a lot more from this point forward. I want to see Shadows and Faces in particular. Those are probably the next two that I'm going to watch, and yeah, because Faces is a big one, isn't it? I've actually got Faces right here. It arrived today. I'm really excited about that, so that's going to be some nice viewing. After watching A Woman Under the Influence, I did watch Killing of a Chinese Bookie, and that was also pretty good, but I didn't like it as much as this film. But again, it was good, naturalistic, kind of like a crime drama, but done in this pretentious, gay film schooly way. No, I'm sorry, I can't help but go into like satire mode. He reminds me a little bit of Ken Loach, who's a British filmmaker who also has these unceremonious, naturalistic styles. Ken Loach often works with non-actors, and he just lets the performances guide the story. If you want, you can see all of the recent stuff I've been watching on my Letterboxd account if you go over to that. But out of all of these new films that I've been viewing and discovering, A Woman Under the Influence is one of my favourites.
If you're going to have spaghetti, I can't stay.
You goddamn Mexican Indian, don't you walk away from me!
As of right now, the entire film is actually available on YouTube in good HD, so you've got no excuse not to watch it. So there you go, it's literally fucking free. What else can I say? It's really good, so go watch it. Now. And remember to fucking subscribe.